Welcome back to the Act Two podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I'm Tasha Hugh.
And I'm Josh Hallman.
And as a reminder, Act Two is a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This podcast is one of the things we do. Thank you for joining us here. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast. That way you don't miss out on our amazing topics. They just pop up like, hey, like a happy little message at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, just listen to this, eliminate another podcast out of your life, and just go with the Act Two podcast.
Yeah, we're all you need. I think we're both tired. Let's just get into it. Can we just get in? Can I skip the other? We'll do it at the end.
Let's just do it at the end. That's fine. What are we talking about today, Tasha? Tell us. Take us there.
We have a mailbag, and I'm really excited because we haven't dipped our hand into the mailbox in a while, and we got a lot to talk about, guys, and it's so exciting because everyone has really good questions, and it's stuff that we've not necessarily talked about on the podcast, which is the most exciting stuff because that means it's the most pertinent.
I want to make a public apology to the people who have written us, and sometimes what we'll end up doing is when it's such a good topic, I think we kind of pin it. And we don't respond right away because we think to ourselves, oh, this could actually be a topic, or maybe we're going to respond. And I apologize. We're really good. We're actually really good at responding.
We say it right up front to email us, and we apologize. But to be fair, many of these were from the holidays and then the fire. So, you know. I'm not. This isn't like a year. This is like just over the last month that things kind of like we wrote back to a few people. And then a couple others I think we were going to get back to now, and now we're bringing them up on the podcast. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone should know that I am the kind of person who, at the bottom of my email box, are emails from many, many years ago.
Confirmed.
Many years ago, left unopened, and then I'll respond to them as if a couple hours have passed. Just be like, hey, no, I can't make that thing. Thank you.
It is the craziest thing. It is a trait that a psychopath would have in a movie. It's like I love it, but I hate it when it happens to me.
And it almost only happens to you.
Yeah. Like, you want to see Jurassic World Part 1? You're like, can't make it. It's like, that was in 2014.
Josh doesn't email me anymore. There's no point.
As a matter of fact, our email thread for writers group has actually almost turned to a text message.
Yeah.
Which is just strange. What a time.
Honestly, it's better this way. It should all be through text anyways.
The phone's won, man. The phone's freaking won.
All right. I'm going to just dive in because we got a lot.
You know what? I said I didn't have it this week in writing, and I don't think this is. I just want to talk about something real quickly because this is something. Can we discuss AI for just a brief second?
Okay.
I just feel that more writers are using AI, and as these things happen, it becomes comfortable and a little bit more comfortable, and then it becomes something you rely on, and then it just becomes part of your writing. And I was just saying this. I'm not saying that's happened to me yet, but I think I talked about this. I'm writing a script where I had to essentially build out like a menu, let's just say, for something that happens in a different country. And I'm like, what foods would be on this menu? And it's like, boom, 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 boom. And it just kind of like fills on ChatGPT. I'm like, oh, well, that's a very helpful research tool rather than me spending about another 15 to 20 minutes on Google.
Yeah.
Should we just go into the main topic?
Yeah. Let's just go into the main topic.
Okay, great. I'm glad I admitted all that.
All right. Anyways, one of our listeners told us that she wrote a pilot and then continued to just write the whole first season of her show. And she was asking, A, is that a totally wrong thing to do? And then B, now that that's done, what the hell does she do with it? Joshua, thoughts?
I wrote her back, actually.
You did?
I did, because she's from Wisconsin.
Oh, that's why.
Just a quick shot. I mean, that's not the only reason why, but I did see that she was from Wisconsin, and I just kind of perked up. So yeah, the woman who we didn't ask if we could use any of their names, so I don't think we're going to say their names, but she wrote an entire season of her show. I've never heard of this. Have you ever heard of this before? Did you know anyone who've done this?
No, not really.
Or who's done this? Okay. So that's obviously not like the proper process and way to do it. I don't want to say it's not the right way, because who knows, something could happen, but usually the proper way is, you can write your pilot and then you kind of write a series Bible and lay out what the season looks like. So my thoughts are, holy shit, you wrote an entire season of a show?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But also, I'm kind of sad because I know how shows can change when you start getting notes, and that's my gut feeling.
Yeah. I would say, so the normal process is usually two different paths. One is, I have this great idea. I'm going to pitch it to someone who can buy it from me. And then once they buy it from me, then they will pay me to write the pilot. And if they like the pilot and they approve, then they will create and pay for a writer's room. We'll all get together and we'll brainstorm and write the TV show together. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go off and make it. So like that's one way. Or I will write the pilot already and then have what you're talking about, like this series Bible situation. And I will either just send that pilot out and the Bible out, and people will say yes or no based on that, or they will say, hey, I got your pilot, but come on in and pitch it for me too. And so they'll read it and I'll also pitch it to them. Mm-hmm. And then when you pitch it to them, it's usually you pitch the pilot in sort of the most detail, and then the rest is sort of, and then generally this is what would happen over the course of season 1, and beyond season 1, this is generally what would happen as well. Main character relationships, any big sort of plot moves, etc. And all the things that we would care about as an audience. So that's typically how TV gets purchased and then made. So to write your whole thing, and I think I agree with Josh, kudos to you. You clearly know what the show is. I think that's awesome. And I think something that stuck with me, which I think is totally right, is a manager producer once said to me, well, you can't be expected to know by yourself alone in a room how an entire TV show should work. Mm-hmm. And while my first reaction to that was, fuck you, I can do anything I want. I'm the best. Like I can do it. You don't know me. What I think like the next step for Tasha was to let go of this idea that I had to do all of that by myself. There's something so freeing to allowing my idea to take in other ideas and to have other writers bounce off my ideas and to make my ideas better. Because I guarantee that your TV show, clearly you have a clear vision and it may be really awesome, but as soon as you get into a writer's room and you start hearing people's reactions to it and maybe some bumps that they have, maybe some characters they wish went this way instead of that way, you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah. Now that I'm like kicking the tires on this with someone else, I can see that there's a stronger story within this kind of first draft that I've done. 99.9% sure that will happen. And so that's why the writer's room comes in so early, so that you don't do all of this work and then have to just like redo everything. Also, I think if you've written all this out, you kind of get married to it, right? And there's less of a feeling like you can be flexible with what the season could be once you do start getting this kind of feedback.
There's a big thing that we actually left out is she does, as I mentioned, she lives in Wisconsin, and I also don't think she really knew the first step. She was like, I don't know anybody. What do I do?
Yes.
And that's a very real thing, obviously. You know, if you don't live in Los Angeles, even if you do live in Los Angeles, you're like, I don't know anybody. Where do I go with this? And so I understand why you would want to write an entire season if you can. But one of her questions was what to do with the pilot. And, you know, I think we still haven't like cracked. There's no one answer for this. I think it's competitions, hosting it on certain sites, getting feedback. I think those are currently the ways that scripts find a way or find a manager, get out in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you don't have anyone in your life who's able to read it. I think she mentioned that she has some friends who have read it, but no industry professionals who are familiar with TV, etc. Then I do think some of your first steps are getting it read, getting coverage done. It's called coverage, and there are many sites out there. And something I'm doing now based on this question inspired me to go and take another look at the TV competitions that are out there and sort of vet them a little bit. So I'm currently doing that, listener who wrote us about this, and I will post sort of the list of what I think is the best TV competitions that are out there, because part of it is coverage. And what coverage will do for you when you submit that is you'll start to get feedback from someone who's a bit more professional. And I say a bit more professional because you're not quite sure who's behind that, but they're usually people who like have gone to film school. I've worked in the industry in some capacity, intern, assistant. Sometimes they're producers, sometimes they're other writers. So like they're people who are not just your friends. And then they can give you feedback on like, this is what's working, this is what's not working for me, et cetera. Just so you can get a handle on like, is this even good, right? And then another step you can take if you want to forego that or do it concurrently is to submit to these TV writing competitions. And typically as you start to research, you'll see that they really only ask for a pilot. And I think sometimes they'll ask you for like, what is your vision for the show beyond the pilot? And you can write like a little couple paragraphs or something about that, but they will only read your pilot, which is another indication of just like how it's usually done. So that is where I would start. And 100%, a lot of these competitions, and again, I'll post the ones that are sort of the top ones, as a winner or even in the top 10, they'll submit your name to a bunch of managers. And those managers, if they're hungry, and they often are, if they're part of that email list, will reach out to you and say, hey, I read your TV pilot, like, let's have a meeting. So that is the best way. If you are in Wisconsin and you are not actively working in the industry, that feels like the most direct way.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. Next question. I love this question. I've been thinking about this question all day, to be honest. Okay. This is a work-life balance question.
Great.
And this came from a listener who we know personally. We've met her at different networking events. And she was asking, do I take a job that lets me work a 9 to 5 so that I can write more? Or do I take a job that gives me more money, but is going to have more grueling hours? And Josh, you also responded to her personally. What do you think about this?
So this is actually such a difficult question because you never want to tell someone not to take money, especially now, like, and not just now, but just anytime. And I think this just really comes down to evaluating how consumed you're really going to be with a grueling job, and evaluating in the sense of, okay, I don't even have time to think about writing. If there's a path where you can save up money for the next year, which will allow you to write for the next year after that, that's very appealing to me personally. But
yeah.
if it's one of those things where if you have the personality where you can get sucked into a job and just kind of never look back, then you kind of have to check yourself in terms of if you want to take this grueling job. These are all like these, because there's no guarantees, and it's just so hard to tell someone to do one thing or another in this scenario. But yeah, it really just comes down to your commitment to writing, when you're going to write, and if you're going to get sucked into a grueling job, I think.
Yeah, I agree with everything Josh said. When I was at this stage, this is why I was thinking about it all day, because I was at this stage very clearly in my life, and I remember asking so many people for advice, and everyone gave me different advice, and ultimately everyone has said, I don't know, like, it's up to you. There's benefits and there's cons to everything that you're going to choose. And I hated that because I just wanted someone to fucking tell me what I needed to do, and I would do it amazingly.
Yeah.
As an A+ student, I would do that as an A+ student, and then no one could. And so I chose a path, and it is the path of my life. And there are bumps, many, many bumps and sidetracks along the way that I ended up taking. But it's the path that I took. And it ended up with me as a professional writer. So I think regardless if you want to be a professional screenwriter, any path is going to take you there. And that's ultimately what I said to her when I responded to her personally, was like, I actually got the most writing done in my most grueling job, which was a 12-hour job when I was working as an executive assistant for a studio executive. Now, the grueling job she's talking about is still in the industry. So there is that piece. Like, at least she's still meeting people and she's still thinking about the industry. It's still part of her life, which I think is a really good way of doing the quote unquote grueling job. But, I had a 9 to 5 before that. And I took that job because I wanted to write more. And I feel like I didn't write as much as I thought I would. And then when I had the grueling job, the 12-hour job that was in the industry, I wrote so much more. And I think I wrote more the same way that people who have kids say they write more, which I don't know if you can vouch for or not. But like this idea that, well, okay, if I'm working 12-hour days, then I know exactly when I have to work. And it's not very much, which means at the end of my 12-hour day, if I go back home, I'm just going to eat and go to sleep. And that's it. So instead, I'm going to go to a 24-hour cafe or someplace that will not kick me out. I will eat my dinner there instead, someplace really cheap because I don't have money. And I'm going to work until I'm tired, and then I'll go to sleep. And then on the weekends, I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to work. And if I'm hanging out with my friends that Saturday, then I'm going to wake up earlier so that I can get my stuff done before I hang out with them. And then also something else I would do at this time, because again, I didn't have reps, I didn't have a job opportunity. All I had were competitions and different fellowships, etc. So I would look at those deadlines. Okay, the deadline for this fellowship is such and such. Let me backtrack from there. How much do I need to write to get my script done in time to apply to that? Okay, well, let me break it down by week. By the end of every week, I need to have these many pages done. So if I get to the weekend and those pages aren't done, then I have to cancel with my friend on Saturday and tell them, look, I'm going to meet with you on Monday or Tuesday instead because my weekly limit is not done yet and I have to get that done. And then those were just like the sacrifices I had to make in order to get my writing done. So again, like I think Josh is right. If you want to be a professional writer, you'll find a way to do it. It's just harder.
You bring up a good point about being in the proximity of the industry. That, when you start taking 9 to 5 jobs, and let's say someone takes it, like they take a gambling job, they're still a writer, but they're now like overseeing a gambling company. I don't know why that just came to mind. My friend works for one, so that was the first thing that came to my mind, like DraftKings or whatever. That becomes your life. You become kind of consumed with the ins and outs of that, and then you start hanging around with people in that world, and you talk about it, and that it's weird how when you're not really in the orbit of the entertainment world, your mind really actually does kind of shift. So there's a lot to be said about taking a grueling job, whether it's, in any avenue. I was in the art department, and I felt great because I was like, oh my God, I'm on sets. I get to see how things are made. And you're always just thinking about movies, but that's not writing, but you're still always thinking about it. And I think that goes a long way. So I'm restructuring my answer based off of what you said is try to take the thing that's in the proximity of the industry.
Yeah, because my 9 to 5 that I talked about that I like sort of didn't maximize my time was not in the industry. It was back in Boston. It was a creative writing magazine, and I wasn't even doing the creative writing. I was just working at the magazine. So it was for some reason harder, especially in Boston where nobody talks about movies. So I'd go and try and write on the weekends. Everyone's writing their dissertation or something, and I'm like, action scene. I feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful. Okay, next question.
Let's go.
This is from a writer-director. They said they have been meeting with some writers to get some projects up and running and was wondering what types of questions they should be asking the writer. Because we had a topic recently about what writers can be asking directors, but what does that sort of reverse angle look like? So what are the thoughts or conversations that we as writers would want to have with a director? And I'm going to end there. He has a second question, but I'll stop there. Josh, what do you think if a director came to you, what are the things that you would want that director to be asking you or talking to you about?
More, what is the story about? Like making sure we're on the same page. Ideally, hey, this is what I think this is about. What do these characters want here? Or just talking about the characters. Hate to say talking about the theme, but just like the overall idea of what you were trying to say within the script. Those are kind of like the key components for me in terms of just like talking to someone and hearing that we're on the same page and hearing that somebody is curious about the decisions that you make as a writer. And asking specific questions of like, oh, when this happened over here. Because, when you take meetings, sometimes you can tell when people just didn't give a shit about a script and maybe they kind of saw it in their own vision on how they're going to change it down the road. So that's for me, those are, I like to hear, not just from a director, really anyone, that you're trying to work with in terms of like just specifics about what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to accomplish, and making sure that they share the same enthusiasm for what the script is supposed to be.
Yeah, the worst meetings I've had with directors are the ones where the director does exactly what you're saying. There's like, no, hey, I loved this part about it. I really love this character stuff. Or there's no sense of they responded to your work. Instead, it's like what I would change about your work.
Yeah, you die on the inside because you're like, wait a minute, you're going to take on this movie and you don't even care?
Yeah, so then what are we doing here? This is the wrong partnership. The best director meeting I had was with a woman who, like, we barely talked about the script itself. We talked about things we love, things that make us emotional, and then we would kind of like reference back to the script about how like, oh, that character embodies that idea. But it was the best meeting because we did like a vibe check, right? Of just like, what do we care about as people? What are themes that are really interesting to us? What are movies that we really love? Movies that we feel like are comps for this and that get us excited. And then by the end of that, I felt so excited to work with this person because I was like, she has a cool vision. She loves what's here and is only going to plus it. So it was kind of similar when we talk about generals and how you should sort of be less technical and business minded and more just like trying to make a friend. That was kind of the best director meetings I've had. And this writer-director was not specific of if they meant a finished script or if they just been generally meeting with writers. So I apologize if this is not helpful to you, but we can go further if you have follow-ups. The second part of their question was, is it worth asking managers if they have emerging talent to talk to?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is yes.
Of course. Do you know how excited writers are when they meet new people? I think anyone, you're like, if you do good work and your manager calls you and says, hey, I talked to so-and-so and they want to meet with you, just do a general. Yeah. And managers love it too.
100%. And this writer-director was a little, I guess, nervous because they are just starting out on their career and they feel like they're not a name yet. So like, who are they? So maybe that's the root of this question of asking managers. But I think the manager is 100% going to be excited and is going to pair you with people who are probably at the same stage. So you guys will meet at a really cool time where you're both really trying to make it and both really excited by ideas, and I think could form a really cool partnership. There's a director that I met and that I love and that I'm still friends with who we kind of met at that same time. He was definitely more experienced than me at the time, but we've kind of grown up together, and there's like something very cool about doing that and meeting people at that stage. So 100% go for it. Managers should be excited.
The growing up thing in the industry is so fascinating because you just see, you've like, oh my God, I met you 15 years ago when we were over here and partied over there, or I met you on a general over here. And then now everyone's like a little older and wiser. Mm-hmm. It's just such a fascinating thing to see everyone's
like running
paths.
Companies and stuff now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's cool. All right. Next question comes from Chris, who actually wrote to us ages ago. So this is one that fell through the cracks. Sorry, Chris. But thank you for listening to us on your drive home from Vegas. Really appreciate that. Yeah. Chris talked to us about being a 40-something who is pivoting to screenwriting, and she has some finished projects and even some successful pitch meetings that she's taken, and is looking to make the leap into representation and moving her career forward. And I realized I just assumed it was a she because K is the beginning. Chris is spelled with a K, and I feel like everyone I know who's Chris with a K is a girl. So I apologize.
Wow,
sorry,
Tasha.
Sorry, assumptions. They are looking to make the leap into representation and moving their career forward. So I think part of her question is, how do I go about doing that? How do I go about moving my career forward now that I have some finished projects together? I've even taken some pitch meetings that have worked out. And then the B part of her question was asking about the Act Two mentorship and if that's something she could look into. So, Joshua, how do you think they should go about moving forward now?
I just think you do what anyone would do at any age, to be totally honest. I think you take your life experience that you've had, you put it into your scripts, and you just push forward full force. Like anybody who is looking to get a rep and looking to get their scripts read. And listen, I don't know if they're driving back from Vegas back to LA, don't know. But it sounds like, let's just assume this person lives in Los Angeles, has lived in LA for a while. There's a very good chance that they know people that are one degree away from somebody in the entertainment industry or is in the entertainment industry. I would say now would be that time to start asking some of these friends or connections if they could pass on a script, if you feel confident about it, if you've had enough people read it. Yeah, there's a benefit to being around for, I'm not going to say a while, but just longer than people who just moved here, because you know more people. Everyone knows people in the entertainment world at this point. So I'm kind of rambling about this. I just feel like it's not a big deal, and just go, to be fair. We do use age as markers. I understand that. When you're 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. I fully understand how this all works. And then you compare yourself to other people but just got to let that shit go, man.
You can't compare yourself, because this is the beautiful part of our industry, and the crazy part of our industry is that you can be any age and break in, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking
it's
matter.
Super fucking cool. And to Josh's point, having experience behind you does actually make you very appealing, because you actually have things to write about and things to say that are unique to you. And that's awesome.
I was just going to say, just real quick as an example, the AI script that we had referenced that sold at the end of last year, which was like a huge sale and kind of kicked off the new year. I remember reading that person, I think, was in their 40s. They didn't have they just wrote, and they wrote this incredible script based off of their experience that they had working in an AI sector, and then they sold it, and they knew one person in Hollywood. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone, but it's just these things where there you go, there's the outlier, and then you just latch onto that shit, and then you just keep moving forward. Sorry, go ahead.
For sure. Barring all of the advice that Josh gave you, which I think is all accurate, talk to people, give it to people that you know, etc. in the industry. We will say it till our face is blue, but competitions, etc., do actually make it into the hands of managers and producers if you get to the top, even top 10, semifinals, etc. That's what happened to me. So those things, blacklist, because those scripts can go to producers as well. And coverage, Josh mentioned, have people read it. If you haven't had anyone read your stuff yet, I would definitely do some passes of that so that you get eyeballs on it from people who are professionals working in the industry, who can give you notes, and you can kind of get it like really, really tight, so that when you are finally ready to get into competitions, festivals, and then get it in the hands of managers and producers, it is the absolute best it could possibly be. But those to me are sort of the obvious things to do, especially if you're 40 and you have a family and you have a mortgage that you're paying or whatever, where it's like harder to just like quit your job and get a PA job somewhere so that you can work through the industry that way. There's this awesome thing that was just starting when I was starting. We didn't really have all of it, which is all of these competitions and fellowships, etc., are fantastic. So that would be my next recommendation. And then part B, you asked about the Act 2 and Cover Fly mentorship. Unfortunately, this year in 2025, we are no longer offering that partnership and that mentorship. And we will be having something new that will come up to replace that. But unfortunately, we are taking a pause in 2025. And it is with a heavy heart, because both sides absolutely love doing this. Both sides absolutely loved getting to meet each other, and they got so much out of it. So it's a bummer. But again, something will come up to replace that, which we will be announcing soon.
Before you go into the next question, I just wanted to say that I spoke to 2 different managers. One of them is my own. And I actually randomly asked, just casually, hey, how are you finding new clients? Like, what's it like? I was just trying to get a sense of the industry. And both had said, yeah, they still absolutely 100% look at people in competitions and blacklists and hosting sites and stuff like that. And I think everyone's still open to that. You'd be foolish not to want to see if there's some like amazing script that you're missing.
Yeah, take advantage for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next question comes from Jacob. All right, Jacob. He's in a very tough spot, Josh, which I'm sure you can empathize with.
Fucking hit me, Jacob. Let's go.
Jacob and his writing partner back in 2022, they won a pretty big writing competition. And as a result of winning that writing competition, they were put in touch with an executive whose company would be perfect for the script that they have. It's horror. They produce horror. It'd be perfect for them. But due to a scheduling conflict at the time, followed by the writer's strike, that meeting with the exec never happened. Cut to now that was 2022. Cut to now, the way the competition is run has totally changed. The executive is clearly not fresh on the script, and they feel like it's this kind of hanging chad that like they've reached back out to try to get that meeting again with the producer, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll read it, no problem. And then like nothing's ever come of it. What do? Do they just let it lie and just look elsewhere? Do they keep pressing and risk becoming annoying? What do you think?
Just based off of what you've given me, I think it's time to start looking for some other people. Yeah, that's it. Maybe one more nudge to the producer. Hey, hate to be a bother. I just wanted to check in one last time. We want to get the script out there. We're going to stay pretty active with it, but just wanted to check in and check your temperature before we start reaching out to other people.
And that might be the way to do it. I think both intentionally, yes, start looking for other people to send this to, but B, in your email, your kind of final email to this executive, it's, hey, we're starting to go to other people. We're going to go to other people. We do think you're perfect for it. We'd love for you to give you a chance to take one last look at this before we start going out wide. Because one thing that producers and executives hate is missing an opportunity.
Of course.
So if there's a chance that they might miss out, then they may actually bite. But if they don't, unfortunately, it is a move on situation. You've had success in this one competition. Maybe try others that are within the horror genre specifically, and there are some of those out there, so that they do also get in the right hands once you've sort of made up the ladder. There are also horror festivals that if you can try to make an effort to go to, surely there are producers who go to those who are ready to meet writers who write horror. Yeah.
That's tough. I've been in a situation like that before.
It's tough to let it go because there's nothing, and you're just like, you liked it. Like, why aren't you biting? It's so frustrating, but you can't force them to do it. It's like in a bad relationship, right? You can't force them to change. You can't force this person to just suddenly read and set a meeting.
And it's so hard because when people change their mind or make up their mind and have their own idea, like that's it. They're off and running with that seed of an idea. So that's tough. It's hard to let go.
It's tough. Okay. I want to end with not another question, but a shout out.
Wow.
To Adam, who reached out to us because he wanted to give encouragement to other writers out there. Adam is 44 years old. He lives in Alabama. He is a former CEO of a startup. And during COVID, he decided, you know what? I'm just going to do what I love. Quit fucking around. I'm going to be a screenwriter. He said he made screenwriting his number one priority during COVID, and he cranked out 6 spec scripts.
Oh.
He found a writing group.
What's it like not being depressed during COVID? That was great. Congratulations. Okay, go ahead.
He said he networked his way into the business, and he did it all online from Alabama. He now is a manager. He's taking generals over Zoom, and he said he's not even the oldest person in his writers group, and he's 44. And I just love this story, and I'm so proud of and happy for Adam for being like, fuck it, life is short, do the thing I love. And it's terrifying, but he did it, and he's succeeding, and I love stories like this.
I love stories like this, too. Freaking Adam.
Adam.
Glimmer of hope.
Killing it.
He's a perfect example of how these things can happen. Anyone can make something happen. He's in Alabama. My family lives in Birmingham. I know what Alabama is like. It's not the biggest writing community. I don't know why I said that. I haven't been there in like 20 years, so I don't know.
I was gonna say you've never talked about Alabama. So
Yeah, I've got
ever.
I spent like actually like 35 years, but no. Anyway, way to go, Adam.
Way to go, Adam. Inspiration. All right. That's our mailbag episode today. We have a lot more mail to go through, so look out for one of those coming up soon. And send us any questions that you might have that we can answer on the podcast as well. All right, quote of the day. Nothing can save you except writing. It keeps the walls from failing, the hordes from closing in. It blasts the darkness. Writing is the ultimate psychiatrist, the kindliest god of all the gods. It knows no quit, and writing laughs at itself, at pain. It is the last expectation, the last explanation. Charles Bukowski.
Wow.
Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram or on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tasha 3.0.
I'm Joshua Hallman on Twitter, Josh Hallman on Instagram.
And as always, the Act Two podcast is a production of Act Two, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode was edited by Paul Lundquist.